Hello! In this lesson, we will learn about how an author uses a point of view to develop the perspective of a narrator in a story. Let's begin by discussing what we mean by the word narrator. The narrator is the person telling the story. Perspective is how the narrator feels about a person, event, or place. The way the narrator describes events in a story is determined by his or her feelings about the events. Authors use first or third person points of view to develop their narrator's perspective. Think about a story that is very familiar to many of us, The Three Little Pigs. When you grew up hearing the story of the Three Little Pigs, the story was told from the pig's perspective. And when they told the story, they talked all about how the wolf was a big, bad, mean wolf. Now, the true story of the Three Little Pigs, was written from the perspective of the wolf. And this time, because you're hearing the wolf's perspective, you get the wolf's thoughts and feelings. And he explains how he didn't blow down the pigs' houses on purpose, but he simply had a cold, and when he sneezed, it blew their flimsy houses down. He also explains how he didn't mean to eat the pigs, but since when their houses were blown down, they had already died, of course he ate the pig, because it was like a hamburger sitting there waiting for him to eat. So you can see how the story changed, because now the wolf was sharing his thoughts and his feelings about the events in the story. That's exactly what we mean by point of view and perspective. Have you ever had two friends tell you the different stories about the same event? This happens because people describe what they notice, think, and feel from their own perspective or their own positions. Narrators also tell stories from their own unique perspectives. An author chooses to write a story from the point of view of either a first-person narrator, that means a character who is in the story, or a third-person narrator, one who is not. When a story is written from a first-person point of view, readers can learn a lot about the thoughts and feelings of the narrator. Take a look at this picture. This is a scene from the story. Think about who is narrating the story and what the illustration and text reveals about the narrator's perspective. We can see the text in the story says, "I couldn't believe he was resting again. He never finished the fence on time." So the details from the text in the illustration is that the woman is the narrator. She can't believe the boy is resting and doesn't think he'll finish painting the fence. She has her hands on her hips and an angry expression on her face. So, because she is the narrator, we get her perspective. She wants the fence painted, and she is angry because the boy is resting instead of painting. The authors sometimes choose to tell a story from a first-person point of view so that the reader can get in the mind of the narrator and know his and her thoughts and feelings. Imagine how this story would be different if it were narrated by the boy, not the woman. Consider how the story would be told differently. So right now, we have no idea what the boy's thoughts and feelings are because the woman is telling the story. But if it changed and we got the boy's perspective on the story, maybe he's resting because he's sick And so he had to sit down because he was going to throw up, or maybe his head hurt so bad. We don't know anything about the boy's thoughts and feelings because the story is being told from the woman's perspective. When you're reading, think carefully about who is telling the story and how that affects what is being talked about in the story.